Are you ready to dive deep into one of the most iconic horror films of the 90s?
Oh, absolutely.
We're going to unpack Scream
Yep.
and see why it still resonates with audiences even today.
Yeah.
We've got a snack of articles, even some of your own notes about the film.
Cool.
And let me tell you,
Okay.
there's some fascinating layers here.
What always strikes me about Scream
Yeah.
is how it managed to revitalize a genre
Uh-huh.
that was becoming pretty predictable.
Right.
The slasher film was
Yeah.
practically on life support in the 90s.
It's true.
Yeah.
And Scream didn't just revive it.
Right.
It flipped the script entirely.
Uh-huh.
I mean, here we have these characters who are actually aware of horror tropes.
Yes.
It's like they're watching a horror movie within a horror movie.
That meta-humor element is so clever.
Right.
Like Randy, the film buff,
Oh, yeah.
constantly pointing out cliches.
Oh, Randa.
Yeah.
He's like the ultimate horror fanboy.
Oh.
And you know that opening scene with Drew Barrymore?
Oh, yes.
Talk about setting the tone.
Right?
You think she's the main character?
Of course.
She's a huge star.
huge star.
And gone. She's gone.
Yeah.
I remember watching it for the first time.
Oh, wow.
Jaw on the floor.
It's a brilliant subversion of expectations.
Oh, yeah.
Director Wes Craven
Yeah.
knew exactly what he was doing. He
Right.
kills off a big star early on, and suddenly you realize no one is safe.
Right.
Plus,
yeah.
you get introduced to that chilling Ghostface mask
Yeah.
and the killer's twisted game right from the start.
And those phone calls?
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
I still get chills thinking about that distorted voice.
Yeah.
It plays on such a primal fear.
Totally.
You never know who's on the other end of the line.
Exactly.
What they're capable of.
It taps into that universal fear of the unknown
Mhm.
and adds to the suspense
Right.
because anyone could be the killer.
Right. And speaking of potential suspects. Okay.
Our final girl, Sidney Prescott,
Yes.
is a far cry from your typical horror victim.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sydney is dealing with the trauma of
Yeah.
her mother's murder.
Yes.
And now she's being targeted.
Right.
But she's strong.
Yes,
Resourceful.
she is.
And she's not afraid to fight back.
Uh-huh.
I love that she isn't just running and screaming. She's trying to outsmart Ghostface.
She's a much more complex and layered character than
Yeah.
we usually see in slasher films.
Yeah.
She's grappling with grief,
Yeah.
fear,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that she initially believed the wrong person killed her mother.
That whole situation with Cotton Weary
Oh, yeah.
adds this whole other layer of psychological complexity to
Ah.
her character.
Yeah.
She's dealing with this lingering sense of injustice
Absolutely.
on top of everything else.
Mhm.
And speaking of complex characters,
Okay.
let's talk about the killers themselves.
All right.
The film keeps us guessing until the very end. Is it Sydney's boyfriend, Billy?
Mm.
Or his best friend, Stu?
Right.
Billy seems charming on the surface,
He does, yeah.
but there's something off about him,
There is?
wouldn't you say?
Totally.
There are moments where you see glimpses of something much darker
Yes.
lurking beneath the surface.
Uh-huh.
And Stu's the wild card.
Oh, yeah.
You never know what he's going to say or do.
He's so erratic.
Yeah.
His erratic personality
Yeah.
and the way he seems to be in it for the thrill make him incredibly unsettling.
Right.
He almost embodies that idea
Yeah.
of pure chaotic evil.
So let's unpack their motives.
Okay.
Because this is where Scream gets really interesting.
All right.
Let's start with Billy.
Okay.
He's all about revenge.
Yes.
Right.
His motive is rooted in the affair his father had with Sydney's mother,
Oh, wow.
which destroyed his family.
Right.
Billy blames Sydney's family for his own pain,
Uh-huh.
and he wants them to suffer.
Right.
What makes Billy's character even more fascinating is
Yeah.
his obsession with horror movies.
It's like he's using those films as a blueprint for his crimes,
Both.
blurring the lines between fiction and reality.
Yes.
I remember reading somewhere
Yeah.
that Wes Craven was really interested in exploring how media violence desensitizes us to real-world violence.
That's a really insightful point,
Right.
and adds a whole new level of depth
Yeah.
to Billy's character.
Right.
It's like he's been so immersed in the world of horror
Yeah.
that he can no longer distinguish between fantasy
Mm-hmm.
and reality.
Right.
It's a chilling commentary on the potential dangers
Right.
of media consumption.
Yeah.
And then there's Stu.
Right.
His motives are a lot harder to pin down,
Yeah.
which makes him even more disturbing.
Stu's all about peer pressure
Yes.
and a twisted sense of fun.
He is. He seems to get off on the chaos and the violence.
Right.
And that's a very uncomfortable truth that Scream forces us to confront.
Yeah.
That some people,
Yeah.
especially young people,
Uh-huh.
are drawn to violence as a form of entertainment.
Right.
There's something inherently disturbing about that.
Right.
And it makes Stu a much more terrifying villain than Billy.
Okay.
In a way.
Interesting.
And this chaotic energy comes to a head in the final act.
Okay.
At Stu's house.
Oh, man, that climax.
Right.
It's such a roller coaster.
It is.
You've got Sydney,
yes,
who is terrified and wounded, but she's not giving up.
She's not.
She fights back with everything she's got.
She does. And she really proves she's not going down without a fight.
I love that she uses her wits and her surroundings to her advantage.
Oh, yeah.
That scene where she drops the TV on Stu, electrocuting him.
Yes.
That's such a powerful moment of empowerment.
Right.
She refuses to be a victim.
It's symbolic of her overcoming the trauma that's been haunting her.
Right.
She's taking control and reclaiming her power.
Yeah.
And she doesn't hesitate to take down Billy as well.
Right.
Making sure both killers are truly gone.
That final showdown really cements Sydney's place as one of horror's most iconic final girls.
Absolutely.
But, you know, Scream isn't just about Sydney and the killers.
Right.
The supporting characters are so well-developed and memorable, too.
They are.
What do you think makes them stand out?
Well, unlike many horror movies,
yeah,
Scream gives us supporting characters who aren't just there to be victims.
Right.
They have their own personalities, motivations, and relationships.
Like Tatum Riley.
Oh, yeah.
Sydney's best friend.
Yes.
She's so witty and supportive.
She is.
But that death scene in the garage.
Oh, yes.
I still can't watch it without cringing.
Tatum's death is especially brutal because it highlights the unpredictability of Ghostface. You think she's safe, and then suddenly she's not.
Right.
And what makes it even more tragic is that she fights back. She tries to outsmart the killer.
Right.
Which shows her intelligence and resilience.
It's a reminder that in Scream, no one is truly safe.
Right.
No matter how likable or clever they might be.
Exactly.
And then there's Randy, the horror movie guru.
She's great.
He's like the audience's voice, constantly pointing out cliches and trying to predict what will happen next.
Randy's meta-commentary is so clever.
Yeah.
He's not just there for comic relief.
Right.
He represents our own fascination with horror movies.
Okay.
And how we try to make sense of them.
It's like he's reminding us that we're all participating in this game of horror, whether we're watching the movie or dissecting it afterward.
Yeah.
He also adds this layer of vulnerability because even though he knows all the rules, he's still susceptible to Ghostface's terror.
Exactly.
It's a clever way for the filmmakers to acknowledge the conventions of the genre while simultaneously playing with them.
And let's not forget Gale Weathers
and
Dewey Riley.
Yes.
They're such an unlikely duo.
They are.
But their dynamic adds so much to the film.
Dale, the ambitious reporter, is initially portrayed as this almost ruthless character who's willing to exploit the situation for a good story.
Yeah.
But she undergoes this really interesting transformation throughout the film.
She does.
As the body count rises, we see her become more invested in finding the truth, and she starts to show genuine compassion for the victims, especially Sydney.
She represents that gray area of media ethics.
Right.
Where's the line between reporting the news and exploiting tragedy for personal gain?
And Dewey, the deputy, is so earnest and well-intentioned, even if he can be a bit clumsy.
Yeah.
He's the heart of the film in many ways.
He represents the small-town innocence that's being shattered by these brutal murders.
Yeah.
And the fact that he genuinely cares about protecting the people of Woodsboro makes him a very sympathetic character.
And who could have predicted that Gale and Dewey would end up together?
Oh, I know.
Talk about opposites attracting.
The relationship adds this unexpected layer of humor and romance to the film.
Yeah.
Shows that even amidst chaos and terror, human connection can still prevail.
But beyond the characters and the scares,
Yes.
Scream explores some really interesting themes.
It does.
One that stands out to me is the impact of trauma.
Oh, for sure.
Sydney is constantly battling the ghosts of her past,
Yeah.
both literally and figuratively.
Right.
The film shows how trauma can shape our lives, our relationships, and even our perception of reality.
Okay.
It's not just a slasher flick.
Right.
It's a psychological thriller, too.
And then there's the whole commentary
Okay.
on media sensationalism.
Gale's relentless pursuit of a story, even if it means exploiting the victims, reflects a very real issue in our society.
It does.
Her character forces us to confront some some uncomfortable truths
Yeah.
about how the media can sometimes distort the truth and prioritize ratings over sensitivity.
Right.
It makes us question our own consumption of news and how it shapes our understanding of events.
And let's not forget the film's exploration of the desensitization to violence.
Oh, yeah.
Which feels even more relevant today.
It's chilling how the characters, especially the killers, seem to view violence through the lens of horror movies.
Yeah.
They almost see it as a game, devoid of real consequences.
It's like they've become numb to the horror of what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that numbness is a reflection of how violence is often portrayed in media and entertainment.
Interesting.
Scream is challenging us to examine how much violence we're exposed to and what impact it might be having on us.
It's really thought-provoking stuff.
It is.
And it's part of what makes Scream more than just a slasher film.
Totally.
It's a film that makes you think, even as it's scaring you.
Absolutely.
Scream has all the elements of a classic horror movie. The suspense, the jump scares, the iconic villain.
Yeah.
But it also has this intelligence and depth that elevates it to another level.
It does.
And almost 30 years later, we're still talking about it.
That's right.
Which says a lot about its lasting impact.
It does.
So why do you think Scream continues to resonate with audiences today?
I think it's a combination of factors.
Okay.
The characters are iconic. The story is timeless.
Yeah.
And the themes continue to be relevant.
Right.
Plus, it's just a really well-made and entertaining film.
And it launched a franchise.
Oh, yes.
That's still going strong.
It is.
Which speaks to its enduring appeal.
Right.
We've had sequels, a TV series, and now a new generation of fans are discovering the original.
It's a testament to the film's power
and
its ability to connect with audiences across generations.
I also think it paved the way for a new wave of self-aware horror films.
Totally.
After Scream, it became okay for horror movies to acknowledge the cliches and have fun with them.
Absolutely.
It's almost impossible to imagine films like Cabin in the Woods or The Babadook without Scream paving the way.
Right.
It opened up a whole new world of possibilities for the horror genre.
It did.
So Scream revived the slasher genre, sparked a franchise, inspired countless other films, and continues to captivate audiences.
Right.
But there's one more layer to this deep dive that we haven't quite explored yet.
You're talking about the cultural impact.
Exactly. How Scream has seeped into our collective consciousness and become this pop culture phenomenon.
Exactly.
I mean, that Ghostface mask is everywhere. Conventions, Halloween.
Memes, you can't escape it.
It's become this instantly recognizable symbol of horror, even for people who haven't seen the films.
Right.
And that speaks to the power of Scream as a cultural force.
Okay, deep divers, you're going to take a quick pause here. But don't worry, the Screams are just getting started.
Oh, boy.
We're back and ready to finish our deep dive into Scream.
Okay.
We've talked about the characters, the themes,
Yes.
the lasting impact on the horror genre.
Right.
But let's face it.
Okay.
One of the things that really cemented Scream in pop culture is that mask.
That's right.
That Ghostface mask is everywhere you look.
It is.
It's become a symbol of horror that transcends the film itself.
Yeah.
You see it at conventions, on Halloween, even in memes.
It's everywhere.
It's like it represents both the thrill and the fun of horror. It's fascinating how an object from a film can take on a life of its own.
Right.
Almost becoming detached from its original context.
And I think that speaks to the unique tone Scream managed to strike.
Right.
It's scary, yes, but it's also self-aware and even humorous at times.
Yeah.
So that mask can be both menacing and playful, depending on how it's used.
You know, it's not just the mask that's had a lasting impact.
Oh, yeah.
Scream also had a huge influence on 90s fashion.
Really?
Those slip dresses, the oversized sweaters. It's all coming back in style.
It's funny how those 90s anxieties and trends are resurfacing now.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a sense of nostalgia or a longing for simpler times.
Right.
But the Scream aesthetic is definitely having a moment.
It is.
And let's not forget the dialogue.
The dialogue.
Scream is full of quotable lines.
It is.
That have become part of our cultural lexicon.
For sure.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Ooh, classic.
Instantly recognizable. Kevin Williamson's writing was so sharp and witty.
It was.
He gave us these memorable lines that were both suspenseful and darkly humorous.
The film's dialogue almost serves as a meta-commentary on the horror genre itself.
Right.
It's like the characters are giving us a crash course in horror tropes while simultaneously experiencing them.
And Scream really seemed to encourage a new level of engagement with horror.
I think so.
It made it okay to dissect and analyze these films, to look for the deeper meaning behind the scares.
I think it's no coincidence that we see so many horror podcasts, YouTube channels these days. Scream helped create a generation of horror fans who love to talk about what scares them.
So to sum it up, Scream is more than just a movie.
It is.
It's a cultural phenomenon that continues to influence and inspire.
Absolutely.
It revitalized a genre, spawned a franchise, and sparked countless conversations about horror and its place in our culture.
And it all started with a simple question.
What's that?
What's your favorite scary movie?
Well, Deep Divers.
Yes.
It looks like we've reached the end of our Scream deep dive. We've unmasked the killers, analyzed the themes, and explored the film's lasting impact on pop culture.
It's quite a film.
But, as with any good horror story, there's always something left to ponder.
There is.
We've given you a framework for understanding Scream.
Right.
Now it's up to you to explore further.
That's right.
If you haven't seen Scream, I highly recommend checking it out.
You should.
And if you have, maybe it's time for a rewatch. You might be surprised by what you discover.
As you venture back into the world of Woodsboro, consider this. Scream brilliantly plays with horror tropes to create suspense. What are some of your favorite horror movie cliches? And why do you think they're still effective, even when we know they're coming?
That's something to think about.
It is.
Until next time, deep divers.
Bye.
Stay curious.
Yes.
And remember.
What's that?
What's your favorite scary movie?
Rocking lobsters rise up tall. Pincers flashing, hear that call. Sandy shores, their new domain. Crustacean rulers break the chain. Country lands, oceans tide. From the currents can't hide. Pinch of fate, claws of doom. Underwater kings make room. Rock lobsters taking over.